You're standing over a shallow grave, 60,000 years old, tucked in a limestone cave in the Zagros Mountains. Someone laid the body down carefully. Someone scattered wildflower pollen across the grave. Yarrow, cornflower, hollyhock. Though nobody asked them to. And somewhere in that ritual, in that cave, tears fell down a face that had no word for grief yet. Now think about the last time you cried. Maybe it was over something small. A song, a movie, a bad day that snowballed. You didn't choose it. It just happened. Water rising in your eyes, for reasons your body understood before your brain did. So why do humans cry? Not the reflexive kind, the onion and dust kind, the emotional kind. No other animal on Earth weeps tears tied to feeling the way we do. Elephants trumpet, dogs whine, chimpanzees scream. None of them leak salt water down their faces because they're sad. In 1985, a biochemist named William Frey, working out of the Ramsey Clinic in Minnesota, sat volunteers down in front of tear-jerking films and collected what came out of their eyes. Then he compared it to tears produced by chopped onions in the same people. The two liquids were not the same. Emotional tears carried a different chemical signature, higher concentrations of stress-related hormones and proteins than the reflex tears did. Your body, it turns out, is not just leaking, it's excreting something. So what does that actually mean? It means crying might function less like an overflow valve and more like a release mechanism, offloading stress hormones through your face instead of letting them build up inside your body. But chemistry alone doesn't explain why crying looks the way it does. Visible, public, hard to hide. For that, you need to look at how often people actually do it. In 2011, a psychologist named Ad Vingerhoets, based at Tilburg University in the Netherlands, ran one of the largest cross-cultural surveys on crying ever conducted, pulling data from dozens of countries around the world. The pattern held almost everywhere. Women reported crying several times more often per month than men did. Not in one culture. In nearly all of them. Here's where it gets strange. If crying were purely a private, involuntary reflex, no different from sneezing, you wouldn't expect it to track so consistently with social roles across dozens of unrelated cultures. Something else was going on. Something built for other people to see. Everyone assumes crying is a sign of weakness, a system failing under pressure. The truth is closer to the opposite. In 2009, an evolutionary biologist named Oren Hasson at Tel Aviv University published a theory in the journal Evolutionary Psychology arguing that tears exist specifically to blur your vision, not as a side effect, as the entire point. Think about what blurred vision costs a person in the wild. It costs you your ability to see a threat coming. Hasson's argument was that this cost is exactly what makes tears trustworthy. A predator can fake a growl. It's much harder to fake a signal that temporarily blinds you while you send it. Vulnerability, weaponized as proof. So what happens when someone actually sees those tears? In 2009, a psychologist named Robert Provine at the University of Maryland ran an experiment using ordinary photographs of crying faces. He digitally removed the tears from half of them and showed both versions to volunteers. Same face, same expression. One difference, water. Photos without the tears were rated as less sad. Some viewers couldn't even agree on what emotion the dry-eyed version was showing at all. The tears weren't decoration, they were the message. Everyone assumes ancient humans, scraping by day to day, had no time for grief. That emotional depth is a modern invention, something softened into us by comfort and leisure. The wildflowers scattered across that grave in the Zagros Mountains suggest otherwise. Someone stopped. Someone gathered flowers no one needed for food or warmth. Someone grieved, long before anyone had a name for what they were feeling. That single detail complicates a tidy story. Some researchers have since questioned whether the pollen was carried in by burrowing rodents rather than placed deliberately. The debate over that Iraqi cave burial has run for decades, and it isn't fully settled. But the tears themselves didn't need flowers to be real. The biochemistry, the blurred vision, the cross-cultural pattern, all of it points to something older and sturdier than any single grave. So the obvious answer, that crying is just an emotional glitch, a leftover reflex with nowhere else to go, doesn't hold up. The real answer sits one layer down. Tears likely evolved as a social signal precisely because they're so costly to produce and so hard to fake. A blurred, vulnerable, unmistakably honest flare sent up to the people around you saying, "I need you to see this." Which brings you back to that grave in the mountains. The body is gone now. The flowers rotted away tens of thousands of years ago. But the impulse behind them didn't. It's the same impulse that puts water in your eyes at a funeral, at a wedding, in a parked car after a phone call you didn't see coming. Ancient humans cried for the same reason you do. Not because something in them was breaking, but because something in them needed to be witnessed. We built entire civilizations, and somehow never engineered a better way to say I'm hurting than the oldest one we have: water on the face, for anyone paying attention to see. A body laid down in a cave 60,000 years ago, wildflowers scattered across the grave, and somewhere in the ritual, tears, for reasons no one had a word for yet. Humans are the only species that cries emotional tears the way we do, and for decades scientists couldn't agree on why. This video traces the biochemistry, the psychology, and the evolutionary theory behind one of our strangest, most universal behaviors. In this video, we discuss the chemistry of a tear, why the water running down your face during a sad movie isn't the same substance as the water from a chopped onion. The global crying gap. What a massive international survey revealed about who cries, how often, and why the pattern repeats across unrelated cultures. The blurred vision theory. The evolutionary argument that tears work specifically because they cost you something to produce. The photograph experiment. What happens to how people read your face the moment the tears are digitally erased? The Neanderthal grave. A contested but haunting piece of evidence that grief, and the rituals around it, may be far older than our species itself. Ancient humans cried for the same reason we do, not because something was breaking, but because something needed to be witnessed.